Hello everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel NEET YUG. In this particular video session, we'll be discussing about a very important property of life, that is reproduction. Here I just want to write a number, that is 8.7 million. 8.7 million species are present in this world right now. Okay, I'm talking about species number, I'm not talking about individual organisms. Out of 8.7 million species, 6.5 million species live on land, whereas 2.2 million species live in oceans. Okay, see, we are Homo sapiens, that means humans. Okay, Homo sapiens are one among 8.7 million species. See, in humans, there are total of 78 billion humans are there in the world. Just imagine, there are so millions and millions of bacteria and fungi or plants. There are so many living organisms are there. If you count all the individual organisms, it could be infinite, correct? So why the huge number of living organisms are there in the world? Simple, all the living organisms have the ability or capacity to reproduce, correct? Okay, what is exactly the definition or what exactly reproduction is? Simple, it is a biological process. Obviously, it happens only in living organism. It's not seen in the non-living things. Okay, so where an organism give rise to young one similar to itself. That is actually the definition of reproduction. Okay, so why exactly reproduction? What is the necessity of reproducing? Before I talk about the significance, I just want to tell you, see, technically reproduction means passing of genes from generation to generation. All individual organisms want their genes to be passed into their young ones. The reason is very simple, because all organisms want their young ones to express their species characters, not some other species characters. This is the reason why they pass the genes. Okay, significance of reproduction. Here, all living organism doesn't want to get extinct. They want to continue their species generation after generation. That's what actually they reproduce. Otherwise, they become extinct. That is very important point to remember. This is actually the significance of reproduction. And I just want to tell you that there are two types of reproduction. The first one is uniparental, that means only one parent is involved, that is called as asexual reproduction. Whereas if two parents are involved, one is male and other one is female, that is of opposite sex, that is called as sexual reproduction. Let us see if one of the first type, that is asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, as I said, it is uniparental. Only one parent will be involved and it is going to produce the young one. So here I have drawn certain pictures here, and you could see amoeba. Obviously you know that amoeba is unicellular organism and it's going to produce young ones, okay, by a cell division, and you know the type of cell division, it is nothing but binary fission. Okay, whereas here the fungi is there. Fungi actually also reproduces sexually and as well as asexually. I am talking about asexual reproduction in fungi. And if fungi actually divides, in the sense when they get split, obviously it's going to be two pieces, right, or two parts, right. Each part will develop into new fungi. So this is called as fragmentation in fungi. Even actually you see them in Spirogyra, that is an algae. Okay, and other one is the mushroom. In the case of the another fungi, actually they produce a tiny asexual spores, and all these spores will be produced by this mushroom or fungi, and these spores actually go and fall on some other place, and they will develop into new fungi or mushrooms. And another one is budding. And you know that in unicellular fungi, that is yeast, even it also exhibit budding. And I'm talking about hydra here. And hydra, particular when hydra matures into an adult, it's going to produce a tiny structure from its body, that is actually a tiny individual, the tiny organism, that is the tiny hydra. Okay, so this small hydra actually not initially they get attached to the body of the parent, and then actually once they get mature, they just detach from the parental body, and then they develop into a new hydra. Okay, so this is called as budding. Whereas a very important and very interesting type of reproduction is seen in flatworms. I think you know about the phylum Platyhelminthes. Okay, this is actually called as the planaria. This is planaria. I will just write here because very important concept. So this is the planaria, a flatworm. Okay, so in this case of in the planaria, you could see a type of reproduction which is called as regeneration. What is exactly regeneration? If any living organism have the capacity to produce young one or a new organism by the lost part or a fragmented part. So for example, I will make you understand here. Let us just cut this animal into many pieces. Okay, so we'll cut this like this. So how many pieces are here? How many parts are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So total 5 parts here. Okay, so this is detached, this is detached, this is separate, this is separate, this is separate. There are 5 separate pieces are there, and each piece have the ability to produce a new planaria. That means from a single planaria, if you cut it into 5 pieces, each 5 parts will develop into 5 planaria. So that's very interesting, right? We cannot do that. Okay, so this type of reproduction is called as regeneration. So this is actually called as regeneration. Remember, planaria exhibit regeneration. It's also a type of asexual reproduction because only one parent. Whereas in the case of plants, obviously plants in the sense like 80% obviously they go for sexual reproduction, and even they also exhibit asexual reproduction. In the sense, I would like to give you an example. In the case of let us take ginger or maybe potato. Okay, ginger. In the case of ginger, you know that ginger in the sense like it is a modified stem. Even if cut the ginger into many tiny pieces and just put it on the soil, obviously they are going to produce a new ginger plant, correct? Okay, how it is possible? Because they have a special structure called as vegetative propagules. You are going to study about this concept in your 12th standard. Okay, so vegetative propagules in the sense like it's mainly a type of asexual reproductive structure actually which produces an young one. Okay, so that is actually in the case of plants. Okay. Whatever the young ones which is produced due to asexual reproduction are morphologically and genetically similar to their parents, because the young ones are produced from a single parent. There is no mixing up of the genes, right? The same gene which is present in the parent organism will be sent to the young one, correct? So they are morphological as well as genetically same, and this type of young ones which are produced by asexual reproduction is called as clones. Remember it. This is called as clones. Whereas, let us talk about the sexual reproduction. Here, 2 parents are involved, so it is biparental. That the 2 parents, one must be a male, the other one is female. The male actually produces male gametes, or it is also called as sperms. We call it as sperms. Okay, so this is actually the structure of sperm, and in the case of female produces female gamete, or it is also called as ovum, a large ovum, whereas a tiny sperms. Okay, when sperm and ovum come into contact, we call it as fusion of these gametes. That is called as fertilization. Due to fertilization, an young one is produced, right? An young one is produced. See, this young one contains both the genes, both the parents' genes, male parent as well as female parents' genes is present in this young one. So there here mixing up of gene is there. As a result, this young one is now having the 2 types of genes, that is male parent as well as female parent genes, and as a result it exhibit like 50% of maybe male like father's character and 50% like mother's character, like mixing will be there, and this is called as the variation, correct? Variation is necessary for evolution. Okay, so now I just want to add one more thing for asexual reproduction. Here no gametes will be formed, gamete involvement will not be there. Here obviously gametes must be there. In the case of plants, how exactly sexual reproduction takes place? You know that the obviously flower contains androecium and gynoecium, that means male as well as female reproductive system respectively, and they produce pollen grains and ovum. They come into contact, and as a result, like you know that formation of seed will be formed. See, in unicellular organisms, growth and reproduction occurs at the same time. Both are simultaneous. So here you don't say growth occurs first, later reproduction occurs. It's not like that. Actually, both are simultaneously happens. So, both in unicellular organism, growth and reproduction is mutually inclusive. Whereas in higher plants and higher animals like us, so here the growth occurs due to cell enlargement and cell differentiation. Because of the cell differentiation, the reproductive organs are ready to produce the sperm as well as the ovum. Because of the fusion, that is fertilization, as a result young one is produced. Here growth occurs first, later reproduction takes place. Hence growth and reproduction in higher plants and animals is mutually exclusive. Reproduction is not a well-defining property of life. See, non-living things obviously cannot reproduce, but living organisms, there are certain living organisms who are sterile or infertile, they cannot reproduce. Some example, here some infertile human couples, or the mule, it is actually the hybrid, which is a result of cross between male donkey and a female horse, which is also sterile, which is infertile, which cannot reproduce. And the worker honeybees, I'll just write it in short, worker honey bees, they are also sterile, they cannot even reproduce. In the case of honeybee colony, obviously queen is the one who actually reproduces, whereas the worker honeybees, all are females, obviously they cannot reproduce. So these are all the important points of reproduction. In our next video, we are going to learn about metabolism, consciousness and cellular organization.